So if diversity is not there, then the variation will be very, very less. If biodiversity is not there, then the variation will be very, very less. Yes or no? So variation is very, very important for the species to get adaptation. Variation is very, very important. So as I already told you, variation is very, very important for the species to survive. Why the variation is required? For example, I am a polar bear. If I'm a polar bear, if I need to sustain in a very cold climatic condition, I need to have a plenty of blubber or plenty of adipose tissue beneath my skin. So plenty of adipose tissue is required, beneath my skin to sustain and thrive in a very cold climatic condition. So this adipose tissue is there in the case of camel also. So being a camel, if I'm standing in the center of the desert in the hard climatic condition, if I need to sustain in this very high temperature, I need to have this adipose tissue in hemp. So the hemp is having the adipose tissue. The adipose tissue of the hemp is making the camel to sustain and thrive very nicely in the hard climatic condition of the desert. So the same thing is used by the bear, which we already told you. The bear is playing a very crucial role in terms of, I'm not saying about the forest bear, which is black in color. I'm talking about the white bear, which is living the case of cold climatic condition like alpine forest. In this forest, the bear, if it need to sustain and thrive, it need to have a plenty of fatty tissue beneath the skin. Okay, so that is the reason why we are saying biodiversity is very, very important. I explained with adipose tissue of the camel hemp, and I explained the adipose tissue of the bear blubbers. Now, if you're entering about the equator information in the Google or anywhere in any browsing window, at the equator and nearby to the equator, the species population are much more. Why? Because they are experiencing quite a lot of variations. So being a species, if I'm experiencing quite a lot of variation, I can um, develop adaptation, of course. For example, being a cactus, I'm having here quite a good amount of thick cuticles over my skin. The thick cuticles of the skin is not allowing the heat entry to happen. The thick cuticles is not allowing the heat entry to happen, right? So the cuticles is not allowing the heat entry to happen, number one. And number two, we need to understand the spines of the cactus and the cuticles of the cactus is not allowing the heat entry to happen, right? So now what we need to understand is basically in the case of plant, I given an example with the cactus. In the case of animal, I given an example. If you're talking about the microorganism diversity, for example, if you're talking about the bacteria which can live in high temperature, which can't found, which we can't find in other bacteria, right? So you know very well, thermophile bacteria is a bacteria which will sustain very nicely, even if you're increasing the temperature to the maximum in the sense, for example, of about 500 degrees Celsius. So even if you're increasing 500 degrees Celsius, the thermophile bacteria can sustain. But that is not the case with all the bacteria. So all the bacteria are not having this credential. Only certain bacteria is having this credential. If you're talking about the camel is having the credential, but we can't stand in the center of the desert in the hot summer season. So we can't sustain in the polar bear area in the alpine forest without any type of external blubbers sheets, or else with the help of this, with the help of sweater, with the help of the shawl, we can sustain, or else we can't sustain in the case of cold climatic condition. Why? Because we are not having plenty of adipose tissue as like polar bear, right? So this is the way we need to remember. Why I need to study biodiversity? Why only certain species are living? Why I can't live? Okay, why certain plants can live? Why not all the plants can live? For example, if you're talking about the desert, jasmine can't live. In the case of desert, can you see any jasmine? No, I can't see jasmine. I can't see strawberry. I can't see gooseberry in the case of desert. Okay, whereas I can see the dates much more. Date can sustain. Okay, um, if you're talking about the dragon fruit, okay, which is much more in the case of China, this fruit grows very nicely in the case of cold climatic condition like China as well as in the Korea, right? So in China as well as in Korea, you can see this type of dragon fruit, which is growing very nicely, but not in the desert. So certain animals, certain plants are specifically conveying its message that I can sustain only in a specific geographical area, but not in all geographical area, only in certain geographical area. Only in certain geographical area alone I can sustain, but not in all geographical area, right? So at that too, if I need to sustain, I need to have this type of adaptation. If I'm not having this adaptation, of course, I can't sustain, right? Now, if we're talking about the coconut, okay, of various colors and shape, size, we are seeing in the case of various states of India. This speaks about the coconut outer cover is not same in the all the regions of India, right? And even in all the regions of the world. So some coconut are orange in color, some coconut are green in color, some coconut are dark green in color, some coconut are light green in color. Why it is so like this? This explains about diversity. This explains about diversity. You take human being, how many varieties of human being? If you're talking about the people who are living in the Philippines and China are having the short body appearances because they're having less surface area. So those who are having less surface area indicates they are living in the cold condition. Why? Because they can't give much amount of heat. Okay, for example, we are all going to Russia. Now in Russia, 10 degrees Celsius. So in this 10 degrees Celsius of Russia or Ukraine, here, if I need to sustain, I need to have the plenty of fatty tissue beneath my skin. That is not the case with Indians, all right? So the Indians are not having plenty of fatty tissue in the skin area. So that is why what we used to shiver. Okay, the moment we are entering Russia, we are shivering, shaking. Okay, why? Because we can't accept the chillness. So that shivering, shaking, we can't accept. Why? Because the chillness tolerance efficiency we are not having, whereas the Russians and Ukrainians are able to tolerate the chillness because of the plenty of adipose tissue beneath the skin, right? So this is a way we need to remember in our mind. Now, uh, what do you mean about biodiversity? I given the introduction segment in the case of biodiversity, right? So in the biodiversity, we know very well from the macromolecules within the cell to biomes in addition to the specific level. Lot of variations, lot of variations are there. So can you give the extract of this concept? So we know each and every cell of various size and shape are sustaining in a different medium because of its specific ingredients in the membrane. The specific ingredients of the membrane, specific ingredients of the membrane or cell wall is making the cell to sustain and thrive more efficiently to sustain and thrive more efficiently. So the cell membrane and wall are making the cell to sustain and thrive in a different medium. For example, my name is red blood cell. My name is RBC. If I need to sustain in the blood, I need to have this specific coat. But that is not the case with the skin cell. The skin cell is having the different ingredients in the membrane, whereas the red blood cells or the blood is having different ingredients in the membrane, but that is not the case with all the cells, right? So this is one information. And second information, um, we told the membrane ingredients in the sense what exactly the phospholipid component, which is not the same component variety in the RBC membrane as well as in the case of skin cell membrane, right? So the components, quality and quantity of the cell in the membrane specifically changes the cell behavior sense. That is the extract of this particular concept we narrated with this example. Now we are going to the great scientist, his name is Wilson, who told about the biodiversity. The biodiversity is representing all the level of biological organization is not exactly same. The reason, the reason behind that is the gene variation. So gene variation is very, very important for the species to survive and for the various subspecies to survive. For example, we already told about the polar bears, we told about the cactus. Now let me see. about the kangaroo rat. So this kangaroo rat, or also called as desert rat, can sustain in this very, very hard climatic condition without taking water. Why? Because it takes the water from the seed to satisfy its water demand. Okay, the seed, when the desert rat is consuming, by taking the water from the metabolism, it can live more efficiently, but it is not having the potential to take the water from the any water medium which is nearby to the desert, right? So this type of special adaptation, which is a classic example for the species diversity. Now let me enter into genetic diversity. The genetic diversity, what we need to understand basically, uh, the Ravulfia, how I'm pronouncing, how I'm uttering the word. In the same way, you need to address the word. Ravulfia vomitoria is a quite amazing species which is growing in the Himalayan area. Okay, basically this plant, why we need to think about this plant, because it is having a respirin molecule in it, which is quite amazing in giving the very good respiratory infection treatment or recovery from the respiratory infection. Um, we can use this particular plant. Again, back I'm repeating, respirin is a plant. Like this, I'm not saying. Respirin is a molecule. So this respirin molecule is exactly the trade name. Whereas if you're talking about the chemical name is reserpine. Reserpine is a chemical term. Okay, whereas the trade name is respirin, all right? So forget about the trade name. Okay, we'll talk about the chemical term, the respirin. This reserpine is a molecule which is very, very important for curing the cold issues, right? If you're talking about this plant, in the ancient time, and even now also, all the tribals, whenever they're having the cough, sneezing, and cold issues, they are using this respirin molecule at the massive level. Okay, and they're getting a very good recovery from there. Okay, this Wolfia vomitoria plant is showing the maximum number of genetic diversity and species diversity wherever it is growing. If we're talking about this small herb, Rauwolfia, why? Because Rafflesia is the biggest flower in the world. So tomorrow morning I'm going for the exam. So what will happen is, because of the tension, what we'll do, we'll write Rafflesia. Rafflesia is the biggest plant in the world. Like this, I'm not saying it is the biggest flower in the world. I am talking about Rauwolfia vomitoria is the smallest plant, which is coming under the category called herbs. And this Rauwolfia vomitoria having a very good molecule called respirin molecule. This respirin molecule is quite amazing in terms of giving the cure, so that the concerned people who are having the flu infection will have a very good proper nasal passage to sustain in the living environment, right? So in the rice, basically, in China, quite a very good number of rice variety we are observing in the case of China. Um, the China is not having only few number of rice variety; it is having quite a good number of rice variety. And if you're talking about India, in India, mango varieties are quite varied in terms of size and shape and taste, etc. Right? So basically, if we're talking about here, the rice variety variation showing country. If you're looking into that very seriously, China is in first place and India is in first place. Okay, whereas mango, exactly India is in first place. Okay, of course, among all the mangoes, the classic mango we used to call as Alfonso mango, we are getting from USA, that is having a quite amazing taste in it. Okay, but who is showing the maximum variation? Okay, which country shows maximum variation? Okay, in human being, who is showing maximum variation? In mango, which country is showing maximum variation? So in the species, which species is showing the maximum variation? Like this, if you're keeping on asking the question, we can derive a lot of answer further, which will take you forward to the next level of board preparation, right? So the India is in first place for the mango, or China is in first place on rice. Like this, we already narrated for you. Now, but the first modified rice to the world, who brought this rice in the world for the first time. The concerned scientist name is Norman E. Bogley, which is not there in the CBSE textbook. That is why we are not narrating. He is from Taiwan, and the credit goes to Taiwan. This Taiwan scientist made a classic semi-dwarf rice variety, which is growing very nicely in the um, very nicely in which place? In the subarid area. Subarid. What do you mean about that? So less amount of water. So in the less amount of water area, this semi-dwarf, which variety I told you, rice variety is growing very nicely. Um, right? So this is the way you are remembering the concept in detail. And now we are entering into the next important segment. Uh, Before entering into important segment, again back, I'm repeating for you. You're having full provision to interact with us, okay, by typing the question in the Q&A section, so that what will start the session and we'll address your doubt, right? So that is the reason why in each and every interval, that means after 15 minutes, I'm seeing the Q&A section. Anybody posted any type of question so that I can say the answer for that, right? So see, improving the vocabulary strength at the technical base is very, very important. Can I say why? Heterogeneity is totally different from heterogeneity. So this heterogeneity or massive diversity is bringing the quite a big number of species variation, quite a big number of species variation, quite a big number of species variation. Um, okay, we are observing in the case of massive diversity, where we are observing which species is showing this. Fungus is showing the massive diversity. Okay, fungus is showing the massive diversity than bacteria and virus. If you're talking about the plant, so which plant is showing the maximum diversity? Of course, algae is showing the maximum diversity than all the plant. So your mind should work. Okay, how we need to prepare ourselves? Why? Because if you're very slow, if you're very vague, if you're very lazy in listening to the session, what will happen is we can't prepare ourselves to focus, and also we can't manage the exam preparation period. Right? We used to call as pre-preparation period. You should be aggressive the way how I'm addressing you, and also you should be more smart enough to uh, map the concept in your mind in such a way you can bring them all the points to your brain, and you can correlate with the multiple concepts and the question and can say the proper answer, right? So this is the way you can remember. And now we are entering into amphibians, of course. So the moment when we are seeing amphibians, everybody thinks about the frog. Okay, am I correct? So not only the frog is an amphibian, okay, not only the toad, okay, not only the salamander. So quite a number of example I can give for amphibians, right? So these amphibians are more amphibians we are observing in Western Ghats, of course, in India. So all this information, the Western Ghats and Eastern Ghats, I am saying specific to India. Why? Because the CBSE curriculum is more centric towards India, right? So this Western Ghats is showing the maximum variation in the amphibians than the Eastern Ghats. Okay, in terms of its survival, of course, uh, in terms of its survival, in terms of its survival. Uh, and second basic information is the variation. See, if you need to sustain in Western Ghats, I need to have, of course, I need to have adaptation, of course. Okay, if I need to have adaptation, what I need to have is um, this adaptation developing specific gene sequence I require. With a specific set of genetic sequence, the specific set of gene code, I can make the very good adaptation, and with the very good adaptation, I can sustain and thrive for my survival, for my survival question. Okay, I can survive because I am the adaptation. I can adapt. Why? Because I am having the specific gene code in my body, right? Now, let me start discussing with the birds. In the birds, 500 different avians are found in the Western Ghats compared to 250 avians in the Eastern Ghats, right? So the amphibian wise, birds wise, um, who is in the first place? Western Ghats is in the first place and the Eastern Ghats. Okay. Now, uh, the hidden meaning. What is the hidden meaning? So it is already there in the slide. Western Ghats is showing maximum variation in the amphibian. It is already there in the slide. Western Ghats is showing the maximum variation in the avians. What is not there in the slide? What is the reason for that? That is not there, that I need to narrate. So that shows that the teacher is coming to the class with the preparation, right? It is the Goat University team. We won't come and take just randomly. We used to come with a lot of preparation, with a lot of hidden information to narrate in detail to get a very good board marks. You know very well the maximum climatic changes are not there. Simple. Maximum climatic changes are not there in this particular specific places. Okay, in which particular places? If you're looking about in the case of Western Ghat as well as in Eastern Ghat, in Western Ghat, climatic changes are very, 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 very less. That is why adaptation possibility is there. Okay, with whom? With which particular species? With the frog, with the bird. So you saw the when I'm talking, I'm forgetting myself. Okay, and then I'm keeping on talking with high energy. The reason behind that is I need to take the class with happiness. I'm interested to take the class for all the students. So like this, whenever you are studying, when you are taking the notes from my class, so I am very much more inclined towards this concept. Okay, what else I can understand from this concept? If with that interest, if you're sitting, then you can tap a lot of messages. In the case of mammalians, if you're talking about the 139 mammal species, okay, in Western Ghat, whereas only 100 species are there in the Eastern Ghat. We are not saying Eastern Ghat is not showing variation. Of course, Western Ghat shows variation. Of course, Western Ghat shows variation, but it is much more than the Eastern Ghat, but less than other area. Okay, which area? Can you give an example compared to which area Western Ghat is showing less variation? Amazon forest. Amazon forest is showing maximum variation than the Western Ghat of the India, right? So that means the climatic changes are not happening much more in Amazon forest. That means our lungs of our planet. This Amazon forest is not showing maximum variation. Okay, the Western Ghat species are not showing maximum variation. It is showing variation, but more than Eastern Ghat, right? So this is a way we need to fine tune our concept in our mind in a such a way we can deliver the goods according to the question, right? Now, if we're talking about the ecological diversity, you know very well the important ecological diversity we are observing in Scandinavian countries like which particular area, you know very well, Scandinavian countries, Norway is given, whereas what are the other Scandinavian countries not given? I need to say, okay, I need to explain. Okay, other than Norway, Finland is there, right? Which is not there in the slide, right? So rain-soaked Meghalaya forest is showing the ecological diversity. So in the yesterday's class, I taught about the ecosystem for you in detail. We know very well about the ecosystem. Ecosystem is made up of quite a number of biotic factors and abiotic factors, right? So we know very well about the biotic factors and abiotic factors. Okay, so we know what is biotic factors and abiotic factors. Okay, that we discussed in yesterday's class, but some students would have forgotten. Biotic factors are living factors, and abiotic factors are not only temperature and even the water quality, also a biotic factor. So what we need to understand in the case of the biotic factors, the living species I told you might be a competitor, might be a parasite, might be a saprophyte, right? These many number of species I am bringing under the biotic factors category. Okay, here we are in the ecological diversity. In this ecological diversity, we are seeing the entire country is showing the diversity. The entire country is showing the diversity because of what? Abiotic factors. Okay, because of what? Because of the competitors. If I need to survive being a goat here, I need to have long horns. I need to be tall. I need to be gigantic. Okay, that is why we told tall. Tall or gigantic both the same. I need to have horns. I need to have a big size body so that I can threaten the other goats. I can eat the grasses much more to sustain in this geographical area. Okay, so because of that, my population size is going up. The other goat population size is coming down, right? So now, if we're talking about the ecological diversity, each or every species group, each or every specific geographical area is taking millions of years to get diversified. Slowly, they're increasing the adaptation, not in one go, not in 1 year. Okay, for that, the gene sequence need to get modified. The gene sequence need to get modified. Okay, once upon a time, uh, the giraffe had a short neck. Okay, here in the ground area, the green is completely lost. Then if I need to sustain, I should jump, 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 then only I can sustain. So that the next size, in terms of lengthwise, it gone up because the gene sequence is completely changed. Is completely changed. Are you getting my point? So this is the way you're remembering the concept, right? So the biodiversity for human survival and well-being of this planet. Okay. For this, the ecological diversity is very, very important. Ecological diversity is very, very important, right? So now we are entering into the important concept. How many species are there on the earth and how many are in India? See, listen, the biodiversity rich area, for that we already had given the example with Amazon forest as well as in India. You can explain Western Ghats as a beautiful example for the biodiversity rich area. Now, in biodiversity, we all know very well it is difficult to determine how many species exist on the earth as a whole. So, this many number of species are there in the earth. Like this, I can't say. Okay, why? Because before discovering those species gone for extinction, right? 1.5 million plants and animals have been described in the total according to the of International Union of what? International Union of Coding and Nomenclature. So in this particular um, overall species calculation, we are not having a specific value. Why? Because many species before discovery gone for extinction. Okay, the same case we can say for plant, we can say for animal, we can say for the microorganism. Okay, now the numerous different estimates and many of them are readily educated hunches, specific inventories or for many taxonomical categories are more thorough in the temperate nation than in the tropical nation, right? Okay, here why this is possible? Why? Because in the case of temperate, okay, here the why this concept is possible like this. If you're looking into this very seriously, in the temperate area, the species population are very less. Why? Because there is a extraordinary climatic change, massive impact of the climatic change in the case of temperate region, whereas in the case of tropical area, we are observing the massive change. No, we are observing the less change. Yes, because of that, what is the advantage? The species can develop very good number of adaptation. So in the temperate, only small species can sustain. In temperate, only small species can sustain, whereas in tropical region, many species can sustain. Why? Because the climatic condition is getting changed to the massive level or to the excess level. Yeah, the climatic condition is changing to the very less level. The climatic changes are happening to the climatic changes are happening to the lesser extent, right? So because of that, the adaptation possibility is much more in the tropical than in the temperate. So the adaptation possibility is much more in the tropical than in the temperate. The reason I already told you, climate changes are massive or aggressive in temperate unlike tropical region. So now we are going for the next basic information. In the case of the number of species in India and overall world, um, if we're talking about the worldwide has been estimated to be anywhere between 20 and 50 millions. Robert May more reasonable and scientific solid estimates put it at 7 million, right? This is the approximate figure, not exact figure, but it is coming nearby to the original figure, right? The animal species makes up 70% of the known species. 70% of the known species, while plant constitutes 25% of the total species count. So if you're talking about 70 percentage of the species count, we are observing much more, much more, much more. 70% of the species count is much more in the case of plants. Okay, what it indirectly indicates? Uh, Plant or animals? Animals are in first place. So what could be the reason? Okay, if you're examining this information in detail, we come to know among all the animals, the insect is in first place in terms of diversity. So the insect, if you're going to Darjeeling, you can see the insect museum, which is one of the finest museum in India, um, which is having quite a lot of insect collections. In Darjeeling, insect museum is nearby to Selling Holiday Resort. In this particular insect museum, if you're examining, uh, we can see quite a lot of insects of various colors, size, and shape. So what it indirectly indicates, the animals are showing maximum diversity. Okay, so insect is showing maximum diversity than all the animals, right? Okay, insect is also an animal. Okay, but insect is showing maximum diversity than all animal. There is a separate department. It started in India to have a very aggressive studies uh, about the insect under the department called entomology, right? Entomology. So can you see this bar diagram? This pie chart we given for you to have a quite look into this. With this pie chart, we can see quite a good number of answers. So whenever you are seeing this point in Gotouniversity portal, okay, zoom and then see, right? So we are having different options. Okay, control plus. Okay, then automatically you can see this. You can zoom this images, and then you can see, right? As I already told you, the insect is showing the maximum amount of. I made a light shade. Why? Because then you'll have the clarity. This insect is showing the maximum diversity. Okay, through the India, the only place which is having the biggest insect museum is Darjeeling, right, of West Bengal. Okay, now if we're talking about the fungus, also I narrated for you, which is showing the maximum biodiversity, then virus, and then bacteria. And then next comes in among all the plants, can you see the picture of the algae? Algae is showing the maximum diversity. Algae is showing the maximum diversity. So, for example, you're a student, right? Always the biology teachers who are making the question papers, they will check your intelligence quotient level. One way of checking is your intelligence quotient thinking and memory capacity. So memory capacity, how much you by hearted, that much you can present in the paper. That questions are also there in the paper. Okay, memory centric questions are also there in the paper. IQ centric questions are also there in the paper. Can I give an IQ question for this particular question? How come the algae is showing maximum biodiversity than the plant? Justify the statement. Yes, of course, I can justify the statement. You know very well, under the thallophyta, algae is coming. This algae is occupying maximum portion of the world. Can you tell me the reason for that? Okay, two-thirds of the world is water. Two-thirds of the world is water. Okay, of course, in the water, algae is more dominant. Two-thirds of the world is water, whereas only one-third of the world is what land. So in this two-thirds of the water medium, the algae is more dominant and showing the maximum diversity and showing the maximum diversity, right? And showing the maximum diversity. And now, so again back, I'm repeating for you, keep this concept in the mind in detail. So here, this type of intelligence quotient checking question will appear in your exam. Don't think define biodiversity. Give example for biodiversity. And now they want to ask, well, how come the algae is showing the maximum biodiversity than the plant? So why? Because the two-thirds of the world is water, which is rich in the algae, whereas the land is not rich in the algae. And this algae takes 50% of the carbon footprints of the world. So in this regard, we are calling the algae as a very good, fantastic biomass producer. Okay, very good you're saying, fantastic you're saying, great you're saying. Why? Because it is removing the carbon footprints. If algae is not there, so the human population comes down, right? So why we given the light marker here in this zone? Why? Because whenever you are circling any images, that should not hide the images. That is the reason why we are going for light color mapping when we are discussing this squares, right? Okay, and see, listen, we generated many number of questions for you by seeing this type of pie chart. Sometimes the pie chart questions will come, sometimes bar diagram questions will come, sometime the circle centric questions will come. So we should tolerate everything. We should practice everything, right? So yeah, if we're talking about the fungus, how come it can show the maximum population size than the bacteria and virus? Why the fungus is called cosmopolitan in nature? Like this, they are saying. Can any one of you can say the answer for this? The reason behind that is the fungus is very very classic in sustaining and thriving very very nicely in hot climatic condition, um, because it is having chitin, which is a polysaccharide present in the fungus cell wall as well as in cockroach wing. Okay, this chitin is making the fungus to sustain in hot climatic condition, in hot climatic condition, in hot climatic condition, right? Okay, the chitin or the fungus cell wall, again back I'm repeating, chitin or the fungus cell wall is making the fungus to sustain and thrive more efficiently in hot climatic condition. I got it. Now, we need to say the reason. Okay, nobody will ask, okay, here define genetic diversity, define ecological diversity. Like this, nobody will ask. Once upon a time, before 30 years back, they used to ask these type of questions. Now, in the case of board exam, always high order thinking skill questions are coming. How you define this answer, how you will see the answer in your brain, and then how you'll bring it in the paper after seeing this question, which you not experienced anywhere, right? So that is why what in the case of CBSE board, they told the knowledge centric questions are asked instead of memory centric questions much more. Now, if you're saying the great scientist called Robert May, who is a scientist, he given the narration, but there is accurate, like this, we can't say exactly, nearby to accurate, right? The May is not a month in this contest. May is scientist name, right? We are saying Wright brothers. Wright brothers are the real human being. Okay, they discovered the first avian apparatus or avian device. In the same way, the Robert May given a great statistics on species population of various geographical area, and given the overall population size is 7 million, right? So that interest is very, very important. That interest make you to sit and study for many number of hours, right? Now, if you're entering into um, the number of species in India, um, we are going to discuss in detail. Fungus exists in a global than fishes, amphibian, reptiles, and mammals. The reason behind that, which we already told you, one is chitin, and other than this, withstanding capacity. Withstanding capacity. For example, we know about our the great um, God. We used to call our Jesus. Okay, he sustained. He sustained, even though many number of pain was given by King. Okay, here King disfigured and demoralized. Okay, and given the wrong commands about Jesus, he tolerated and he proven he is a superior. Right. The same way, if you're talking about the fungus is a species which can sustain in this particular geographical area because it is having chitin in it, that we already told. In addition to that, what else are there? Uh, it is having a modified morphological structure in such a way it can exhibit symbiotic association with the other species. So, what do you mean about morphological appearances? We're talking about one is algae, another is fungus, which is exhibiting the mutual understanding relationship, or else we can say the symbiotic relationship, which makes the algae and fungus to sustain and thrive more nicely by exchanging the nutrients depending upon its need. So I require certain components. Fungus, please give it to me. Fungus is saying to me, being algae, okay, from me, okay, again back I'm repeating, always we need to have a role play, right? In this contest, I consider me as algae, the other friend of mine is fungus. So both we are exchanging the nutrients and we are sustaining, thriving, living more efficiently, no issues. Okay, why? Because we adapted in a such a way with our morphological features. What do you mean about morphological features? Can you tell me? Of course, if you're talking about the fungus structure, I'm drawing for you to have a better understanding. If you're talking about the fungus, which is having the hyphae structure with quite a lot of branches in it, this is a way the fungus having a filamentous branched structure which is growing much more better than the other fungus. Okay, some fungus are growing in a branched version, in a filamentous version, right? So this can exhibit uh, the algae Chlamydomonas looks in this way, having a two important flagella. So the algae and the fungus are exhibiting symbiotic association with each other and exchange the nutrients among each other so that it can sustain. So how come this species is sustaining nicely? Well, because it takes the nutrients from the other species. Okay, in this regard, in this particular contest, the fungus and algae, I'm not calling as parasite. I'm calling as symbionts. Be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. Some students are writing this as a parasite. No, fungus is not a parasite in this contest. So what type of question will come based on this information? What we convey to you is the can you give an example for the fungus not acting as a parasite but depends upon other species? If that is the case, we can give this symbiotic association of the algae and fungus, which we used to call with a special term called lichens. So lichens is a beautiful example for the fungus algae um, symbiotic association, right? So your mind should work in many ways. See, we need to learn with happiness. We need to read and recall the information with happiness. If that is the case, then the issues will come very nicely. Then also we can face the issues very nicely, right? So if you're talking about the number of prokaryotic species is uncertain for biologists. Okay, we can't say why because in each and every day new microorganisms are coming. New micro. Can you give an example for that? Your antibiotic resistant, again back I'm repeating, antibiotic resistant. What do you mean about antibiotic resistant microorganism? It can sustain and thrive more nicely in the antibiotic environment. For that, we are saying antibiotic. So, antibiotic resistant microbe. So, antibiotic resistant microbe, which is very, very important to is very, very important. It sustains very nicely in the antibiotic environment. So again, back I'm repeating, in the antibiotic environment, it is sustaining very nicely. In the antibiotic environment, it is sustaining very nicely. So these antibiotic resistant microbe are formed in many number in the world. Okay, many number of antibiotic resistant microbe are formed in the world. Okay, in each and every day. That is the reason why we can't specify these many number of microorganisms are existing in the world, right? So this is the outcome of this, okay, particular contest, what I given with the bracket. Now, many microspecies are simple, not culturable in a lab setting. Therefore, conventional taxonomical procedures are not appropriate for identifying microbe species. So many microspecies are simply not culturable. Can I give an example for that? Yes, of course. The virus, like retrovirus, we can't culture it very easily. Why? Because virus has both a living and non-living property. So this is a challenging area for us. Why? Because this retrovirus sustains in certain places, but not exhibiting the living property outside the cell. So it's sustained in the living cell, but uh, outside the cell, it is showing the non-living property, right? So non-living property, okay, non-living property is shown by the virus. So culturing those microorganisms and handling those microorganisms is a difficult task, but we are culturing. We are culturing, but it takes a lot of risk. Now, we're entering into the next important concept is this group varies alone. This group varies alone could number in millions if we adapt the biochemical or molecular criteria for defining the species, right? So, any one of the students are having doubt in this regard, please ask me. So, one second back, we are narrating. Um, can you see this? The red one is full of insects, full of insects. The red one is full of insects, right? Full of insects. Now, so we given this many number of informations for you. Uh, Here, the number of species in India and overall world. Let me start discussing in detail. Um, See, in this contest, in this content, whatever we given for you, which is missing exactly, the hot spot is missing. So we know very well the hot spot, the word indicates the place where the species population are much more. Hot spot is a place denotes the species population are much more, right? So we know very well in this world, 8.1% um, of the world is having maximum species population, and 2.4% of the world is having less population. So again, back I'm repeating. So uh, in this 2.4% of the world, in this 2.4 percentage of the world is the land area, right? In this 8.1% belongs to India. India is showing the maximum diversity. Maximum diversity. India is showing the maximum diversity is in the first place. Like this, we are not saying, but it shows maximum biodiversity. But because Amazon is in the first place, okay? Why? Because by chance, if you're writing India is the first place in biodiversity, like this, if you're saying, then again back it creates issues, right? So India is having 12 mega spot. Okay, some Indian students who already got the green card and then they got the citizenship. That is the reason why we are using the word. We are not using our nation, right? Okay, some Americans, some Singaporeans are doing the CBSE classes in their respective countries in the CBSE school. So here in India, we are observing 12 megaspot. This 12 megaspot area is quite amazing, indicating it is having quite a good number of species population, um, right? So quite a good number of species population. This is the way we need to remember, right? So now what else we should supposed to know? We know very well in India for 45,000 plant species and twice 90,000 animal species are there in India, right? What is the reason behind that? Because of sustaining efficiency. Sustaining efficiency. Okay, sustaining efficiency and thriving efficiency. So one is sustaining efficiency, another is thriving efficiency. Um, so if you need to thrive, if you need to sustain, you need to have adaptation. For that, all the plants can do. For example, so I'm a strawberry, I'm a raspberry, I'm a gooseberry, I'm a blackberry. I can't sustain in desert. Why? Because I'm not having adaptation like date plants, like this raspberry is saying, gooseberry is saying like this. Now, if you're going for discussing about the taxonomist are very um, curious in classifying the plants and animal species based on many parameters, not only few parameters. Many parameters means not only morphology, uh, not only anatomy, not only physiology. One is morphology, another is anatomy, another is what one is morphology, anatomy, Other than the cytology, so one is morphology, anatomy, cytology, uh, and other than embryology. So like this, many parameters are taken into consideration for classifying the species into many number, um, into not in many number, into minimum number of groups, into minimum number of groups. Morphology denotes external appearances, anatomy denotes internal structural information, cytology denotes the cell information, and embryology denotes the embryo studies of various species, right? So I think so you understood this message. Now, any one of you are having any doubt, please let me know. Uh, Calmly you listen. See, nobody will ask um, the percentage information, right? Then what type of messages they will ask in the case of board exam? They will ask, what is the reason for this? What is the reason for this? So this 8.1%, this 8.1 percentage of the world species having 2.4 percentage of the world population, right? This we need to keep. And what would be the reason? What would be the reason for this? So we are calling this mega spot. Again, back I'm repeating. Mega spot is also called as hot spot. Hot spot or mega spot denotes species rich area. In the mega spot area, or in the case of hot spot area, the species are much more, much more, much more. The species are much more. Species are much more, right? So species are much more in the mega spot as well as in hot spot, because it is showing the variation and also uh, it is showing maximum adaptation. So adaptation, variation, diversity are all interrelated with each other, but everything are not same. So one is adaptation I told you, another is variation I told you, another is what? Variation, adaptation, then evolution, evolution, right? So what we need to understand, evolution is a concept which is very, very important um, to bring the species to the different varied structure so that it can survive in the given geographical area. In the given geographical area. Okay, now, um, so we discussed this in a number of messages for you. Now, we are going for pattern of biodiversity. In the case of pattern of biodiversity, what else we should know? Uh, we'll discuss everything in detail. Um, Before discussing about the pattern of biodiversity, just I'll ask some few questions with you. Um, Here, whenever you're having time, see the related video of our Gotouniversity portal, which is amazingly presented for the students' benefit. Kindly make use of it and get maximum benefit by seeing this related video in the Gotouniversity portal. Now, in the case of examples, what examples? Discuss the ethical and philosophical arguments surrounding the bioconservation. How do cultural and spiritual perspective influences our approach to preserving biodiversity? See, we given this set of questions exclusively to face the hard questions, right? So being a student, I don't know what to write, how to write. So we already told you in number of time in last many number of classes that we need to give a lot of small paragraphs and we need to write quite a good number of points, right? So we need to give quite a good number of points. So here in this intrinsic value and a right to exist independently of their utility to the human, right? Um Species have intrinsic value. What do you mean about intrinsic value? Um, that value, any one of you can say in this information. I'll give an example for you, right? See, frog is not living in sea. Crab, freshwater crabs are there. Marine frags are there, also there. So I'm saying about sea crab. So sea crab, okay, and then we are saying about fresh frog, freshwater frog. We are calling as fresh frog. So this freshwater frog I told you, and then sea crab I told you. So what is exactly happening here is the freshwater frog, okay, is showing the population size increase from 0.1 to 0.2%. Okay, let us consider in Armenia, whereas sea crab amount is going from 0.1 to 0.2% in the case of Maldives, right? So the same amount of value, we are calling that as intrinsic value of each and every species, right? That is one way. And second way is, for example, in first 100 decade, in the first 10 years or one decade, in second 10 years, in third 10 years, like this we are bringing in terms of, so first 10 years, second 10 years, and third 10 years. In the first 10 years, second 10 years, and third 10 years, like this we brought quite a number of information. In the first 10 years, what we need to understand, um, the increase in population size is 0.1%. In the second 10 years, the increase in population is 0.12. The third is 0.1, right? So if you're talking about the overall information, um, if you're talking about, we can take the mean or we can take the average of this. So to bring the intrinsic value of the population size increase of a specific species like tortoise or goat or camel, okay, what are the species you are interested? What are the species you're interested to calculate? In this, we can bring it and then we can correlate the message, right? Right. So this is called intrinsic value. So intrinsic value, okay, means what exactly? Define intrinsic value. Like this, they will bring the message for you. So normally told, they won't ask the word define. With the confusable terms, they will ask define intrinsic value. The question paper setter or having quite a good number of experience, quite a good number of experience in the sense, years of experience. So they know very well the students lag in this phase to the maximum. So accordingly, they will design the question, define intrinsic value, and explain with example. I given the example for you. I given the definition for that, which is not given in this slide, right? So now next point is, our Wilson suggested that humans have an innate connections and love for the nature, while further underpins the ethical imperative to the conserve biodiversity, right? So, you know very well the conservation cost is very, very high. Okay, the human-made conservation uh, to bring the species diversity, we are observing in the case of Arcata. In the Arcata, you know, the great important ecologist, his name is Wiltmore. Under his name, one university is working in that university. Students and the Arcata of America, um, local people are uh, maintaining one ecosystem, but it is very, very costly, right? So the purpose of conveying this message to you is destroying the biodiversity and destroying the factors responsible for biodiversity, or distracting the area, giving a very good provision for biodiversity to develop, is a wrong issue, is wrong, is wrong. Okay, a lot of issues will develop, right? So that is the way we need to narrate the information. In the case of hard questions, now we are entering into the next important biodiversity concept. Biodiversity is often measured in terms of species richness, right? Species richness, right? So now, if we're talking about uh, in terms of species richness, do you think this is a sufficient metric to evaluate the health of an ecosystem? What other factors should be considered when assessing biodiversity? Species richness is a useful metric for assessing biodiversity. It alone is not sufficient to evaluate the health of an ecosystem comprehensively. Okay, right? So, species richness means the species population is much more. The reason for that is adaptation is much more. Uh, Why? Because the the climate distraction is much more. Okay. So the species richness comes because of many reasons. Not only adaptation, and also the reproductive credential. So if you have a very good reproductive credential, as well as you have a very good nutrients utilization capacity, nutrients utilization capacity is quite amazing, and reproduction capacity is amazing, adaptation is amazing, then the population size will go up. The reason for the species richness, the reason for the biodiversity. So one is nutrition, another is reproduction, another is adaptation that we narrated for you in detail. Now, if you're entering into the biodiversity encompassing not only the number of species, but also the genetic diversity, ecological diversity, and functional diversity. So we know very well the ecological diversity and functional diversity. Can you give an example? So here, Gotouniversity team is not only reading the slide, giving a lot of information in addition to the slide, whatever they are presenting for board excellency, um, right? The genetic diversity is coming because of the gene variation. So gene variation is very, very important. Again, back I'm repeating, gene variation is very, very important to bring the diversity. So functional diversity, for example, one protein functions in a different order in one species. The same protein functions in a different order in other species. Okay, can you give an example for that? Yes, of course. For example, so I'm a rabbit. Okay, I digest the carbohydrate very nicely than the other mammal man. Can I give an example? The enzyme name is salivary amylase, which is quite amazing in terms of performance level in rabbit than the man. Salivary amylase is quite amazing in rabbit than in the man. So this is a very good example of the functional diversity, right? So genetic diversity is vital because it ensures the adaptation and resiliences of the species in the face of environmental changes, right? So what we need to understand basically the overall health and stability of an ecosystem includes factors which is a keystone species, the availability of the essential resource, and the balance of the ecological process is very, very important, right? So the confirmation report for you is this is the way your answer should be explained in detail, right? Uh, so always this the teacher who is evaluating your paper, they will check the keywords, species richness, okay, ecosystem, functional diversity, genetic diversity, okay, resiliences of the species, right? And then the wetland, forest, and coral reef, right? So, so for example, if it is a 3 mark question, I'm saying about being a paper evaluator for many board exam. I am saying this is the way they will see the keywords, right? So for example, for this, if the keyword is off mark, other off mark, other off mark, so other off mark, so other off mark, right? So total 3 marks you will be getting if it is a 3 mark question, right? So this is the way the marking scheme looks in your evaluation area. Your answer sheet evaluation area will be having the teachers with the marking scheme like this. They will check the keywords and then they will check the grammar. They will check the clarity in which way you narrated, and then they'll give the marks, right? I think so. Any one of you are having any doubt in this place, please let me know. I already explained to you in detail. Now, uh, if you're talking about the working examples, we've spoken much more, right? So any one of you are having any doubt? No one has a doubt. So I'm coming for the tips for the exam. Terminology practice is very important. And then understanding the various ecosystem is very, very important. Uh, like this, they are saying again back. I am giving in a concise way. See, yesterday when we discussed about the ecosystem types, just we need to recall. Okay, the recalling credential is very, very, very important when you are discussing each and every concept. See, for example, so one is aquatic ecosystem and other is land ecosystem. So one is aquatic ecosystem, another is land ecosystem, right? So if you're talking about the this is one way of ecosystem, and if you're talking about in the land itself, we can further classify the land ecosystem in detail. In the land ecosystem, so some area are rich in water, some area are rich in moderate water. Accordingly, it is called as mesophyte, xerophyte, hydrophyte. Like this, three different type of plants we are observing: xerophyte, mesophyte, hydrophyte. Okay, xerophyte, mesophyte, hydrophyte are the plants which grows much more in the different geographical area. In a different geographical area, animals and plant diversity around the earth is not uniform. So I'm giving some time for you to say the message very faster. The distribution of the plants and animals around the earth is not uniform. Rather, it is very, very uneven. So any one of you can say the reason for the same. I'll be giving 10 seconds for you to say the answer, or else I'll be working on this with much more information. Um, so any one of you can say the message for this. So the distribution of the plants and animals diversity around the earth is not uniform. This was the question we given for you to explain much more, but no one explained. So, and rather it is uneven. Okay. The reason behind that is some area is having very good rainfall. Some area is having very good rainfall. Some area is having very good rainfall. Yes or no? So we know very well the some area is having very good rainfall. Like this, we already told you, right? Okay, some area is having very good rainfall. Can you give an example? Just only we discussed rain-soaked Meghalaya forest, right? Is having maximum rainfall. Is having maximum rainfall. Some area is having maximum rainfall. Some area is having less rainfall. Some area is having maximum rainfall. Some area is having less rainfall. Accordingly, the species population also varies, right? Now, I'll give an example for the less rainfall area. Desert is example. Can we give Rajasthan deserts as a very good example for the less rainfall area? Yes, of course. The desert is not only there in Rajasthan, it is there in many places of the world. Um, in this biodiversity information, the biodiversity pattern of many group of plants and animals, the most well-known of which is the latitudinal gradient in richness, right? So we all know very well at the equator and the area which is nearby to the equator, at the equator and nearby to the equator. So the population size is maximum. Why? Because that denotes tropical and subtropical area, which is experiencing less number of climatic change. So that particular tropical and subtropical area, which is having the classic number of species population to have a species richness and diversity, right? So as I already told, this tropical and subtropical area are having less climatic change, or the impact of the climatic change is less, unlike the alpine forest. So less climatic changes or less climatic condition, like this we already told you, right? So now what we need to understand in this area is um, in the temperate area or in the polar bed area, in this particular latitudinal gradient, um, the species population or less. Species population of less. Why? Species population of less. Why? The reason is I am a animal. I can't code like polar bear. So my sustaining efficiency is not possible in this polar region. Again back, I'm repeating in the polar region. Again back, I'm repeating in the polar region. Of course, the all the animals can't live. Only few animals like polar bear can sustain. Polar bear can sustain. Not all the plants can sustain. Right. So now we are entering into the important theme um, in the species diversity information. Colombia is having a maximum bird species, whereas New York is having only 105 avians. Whereas the Greenland, 71 degree north, okay, we are saying that as a latitudinal gradient, we're just having only 56 species population. Okay, like this, each and every part of the world is having one species population, right? So now, so India is a home for 200 avian species. Um, okay, that means 200 avian species are there in India. Okay, like this, we already narrated for you. So any one of you are having any doubt, please let me know. I am there to help you. So no one raised a question, and so we are moving to the next important concept is pattern of diversity. Here, in the pattern of diversity, the Amazon rainforest in South America is a primary tropical area, is home for the world highest biodiversity. So the reason, n number of time, we told to you why Amazon is in the first place in terms of biodiversity than all the forest. The reason behind that is the number of climatic changes are less, as well as the impact of the climate change is also less. Again, back I'm repeating. So climate change is less in the Amazon forest area. I not told climate change is not there. I told climate change is less. So in this area, the species population are growing to the maximum level, right? Okay, that is a message we need to understand. Unlike temperate region, they experienced frequent glaciation in the past. Um, in the past, what do you mean about frequent glaciation? Means precipitation. Sometimes you are saying precipitation. Sometimes you are saying glaciation. Sometimes you are saying the distraction in temperate region. What do you mean about that? The species population is coming down in its level. The species population is coming down in its level. That is the reason why we are saying that particular species can't sustain. Okay, the species is glaciated. The species is glaciated. What do you mean about that? So it vanished. Why? Because it can't sustain. Can I give any more example? Yes, of course. You know very well the rhinoceros was killed by the ice age. So ice age, if you're talking about the ice age, is one particular period or era. In this particular period, the rhinoceros vanished because the very chill climatic condition made the rhinoceros to die. So either you say chillness or either you say coldness made the rhinoceros to vanish because uh, it can't sustain in this ice age. So um, so in this way, you need to think in many dimension. This is the way the temperate looks. So the temperate zone is not allowing all the plants to survive. Only few plants like alpine forest and other more few plants can sustain in the temperate area. Now, if you're entering into um, the next basic messages in the particular biodiversity area, um, tropical area remains undisturbed for millions of years, allowing for extensive evolutionary boundaries. Okay, here, uh, so if the area is not having glaciation or maximum variation, of course, the species will develop a lot of variations, right? Uh, we given the dates as a very good example in the last class. The dates of various size and shape. we are observing in various Gulf countries, right? Um, the rates of various size and shape we are observing in various Gulf countries. So various Gulf countries are having various size and shape of the dates, right? So what we need to understand, we told about the Gulf countries, right? Of course. And then second major point is um, here you saw in one grocery shop of any Gulf countries, one date is very long, one date is very short, one date is having huge flesh, one date is dark red, one date is dark brown in color, right? This is a very good example for the species diversity, um, which is a quite narrative or a good example for the desert area. In the desert area, these type of diversity we are observing. Now, the next basic message is um, in the speciation, unlike the temperate region that experience frequent glaciation, the tropical area has undisturbed millions of years. Okay, that is the reason why many species originated in tropical, unlike temperate area, right? So, any one of you are having any doubt in this zone, please let me know. So, no one has a doubt. I saw the Q&A section, so now I'm entering into um, the next important narration, right? Here, rainforest is a very good climatic condition made the insect to uh, made the insect to multiply much more, right? So we know very well the insects are playing a crucial role. Insects are playing a crucial role in giving the maximum biodiversity. Okay, these insects population size is maximum in the case of Amazon forest. Like this, we already narrated for you. Um, why? Because of the less climatic condition, what we are experiencing in the case of a tropical area, less climatic variation or less climate variation we are observing in the case of tropical area. Now, if you are entering into the next major concept in the temperate zone is the cold climatic condition. Cold climatic condition we told for you. This cold climatic condition is making the many species to survive and thrive more efficiently. Now, we are entering into species area relationship. Species area relationship. Uh, here, uh, if you're talking about species area relationship is very, very important to understand how the species is showing maximum population in a specific geographical area, but not in all geographical area. For example, we can see the falcon, avians much more in the case of Gulf countries, but not in India. So than America, than Africa, than Australia, Gulf countries are showing the maximum variation in the case of falcon avian, which is the national bird of UAE. This falcon species population is much more good in the sense in UAE, indicating the UAE is promoting a very good, fantastic environment for the falcon to survive more efficiently. Of course, in this particular graph, we are observing the rectangular hyperbola. So the rectangular hyperbola is a graph. The relationship between species richness and area can be represented as rectangular hyperbola. Uh, um, this rectangular hyperbola is represented with a important derivation log s equal to log c plus z log a. Understand the message rectangular hyperbola whenever we are keeping on saying this message. So listen very, very carefully. In this particular area, this line, what it indicates. Rectangular hyperbola is blue in color. Then what this red line indicates, the linear line indicates what? Equation of straight line, right? In the lower grade, we studied y is equal to mx plus c, which is not given on the slide. If you're very good in the maths, then you can correlate this equation along with the equation of straight line, which is not given in the slide and book series and in the series textbook. So the love towards the maths, the love towards the biology is giving you a very good idea of the biomathematic concepts as well as the biostatistics concept. You need to correlate. Okay, this log is equal to log c equal to log c plus z log a. For reading that, we are not here. You go and check your CBSE textbook. They are not given equation of straight line. The love towards the subject is very, very important. Y is equal to mx plus c. So the x-axis and y-axis, the m is slope, the c is intercept. Like this, we studied in the lower grade maths, of course, which is not given in the CBSE textbook. So we need to understand why this is log s, why this is log c, why this is z log a. So that is quite amazing, right? So now, if you're seeing this question, in this area, the species area relationship or species richness. The S indicates species richness. The A indicates area, and Z indicates regression coefficient or slope of the line, right? So, okay, here when I brought y is equal to mx plus c, the ms is slope, like this we already told for you. The same concept you integrate in this particular diagram. The blue thing is the rectangular hyperbola or parabola. No, it is not a parabola. It is a rectangular hyperbola, right? And then this is the equation of straight line, right? So when you're seeing the graph, the love towards the subject should come just like this, you know. Can you see this place here? The quite amazing thing. Here, this line, this line, and this line, we are going to discuss with a lot of white space. Calmly listen to this in detail. Why there is a linear curve? Why there is a linear line? The linear line indicates there is no barrier. No barrier. The linear line indicates there is no barrier. That is the reason why the species population is uncontrollable, classic in that particular geographical area. This is the way we need to correlate this message, what I convey to you along the red line. Whereas if you're talking about the blue curve, denotes the hyperbola, rectangular hyperbola. This rectangular hyperbola indicates barriers are there. Okay, quite a number of barriers. Might be a temperature barrier, might be a competitor barrier that I am drawing with a specific line indicating this line is a barrier line. This line is a barrier line, right? So the barrier line indicates the species population is going to the massive level. The species population is going to the massive level, right? The barrier line indicates the species population is going to the massive level. Okay. Species population is going to the massive level? No. The barrier is not allowing the species to continue its original volume. The original size of the population is not reflected behind this limit. Okay, the reason behind that is this barrier line might be a temperature, very, 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 very important, drastic climatic condition like the great chillness is not allowing the species to grow. Okay, if you're talking about might be a competitors or might be a microorganism infection like fungus. Fungus microbe is not allowing the species to grow furthermore. Okay, it's not allowing the species to grow furthermore. This is the way you're remembering the concept in detail. Right? So any one of you are having any doubt in this place, please let me know. So I'm there with you to help you out. So nobody told any doubt. So I'm continuing with the next concept. Can you see this? The Z. We told you many number of time. The Z is regression coefficient or the slope of a line, right? So this falls within the range of 0.1 regardless of taxonomical group of the region, right? So as we already told you, this slope, this 0.6 to 1.2, right? So after analyzing the species relationship, yeah, continental scale and the slope of the line. So what indirectly we are understanding is the Z value ranging from zero point 0.6 to 1.12. So um, so the Z falls within the range of zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.2, regardless of the taxonomical group of region, right? So the tropical forest of the different continent. So the frugivorous birds and mammals in the tropical forest of the different continent, the slope is approximately 1.15, 1.15, right? So here the frugivorous birds denotes the birds which eats the fruits and mammal in the tropical forest of different continent. The slope will be 1.15. It is common for both. It is common for both. Okay. Uh, so the adaptation efficiency is falling the same range of 1.15. That is the indirect meaning of this particular Z value or regression coefficient, right? The significance of the species diversity in ecosystem. We already had quite a good number of example with amazing presentation. What example we given? The carbon footprints or reduced by algae. Carbon footprints are reduced by algae, like this we already told to you, right? So the importance of biodiversity, first you see this picture so that you'll understand exactly the genetic diversity. The genetic diversity, how it is going up, right? The provision of the food security. So the importance of biodiversity, we indicated for you, right? So uh, the traditional ecologists delivered that community with species biodiversity tend to be more stable than those of the few species. Tend to develop with more than uh, tend to develop more stable than those of fewer species, right? So So a stable community should exhibit the consistent productivity from year to year, displays resistance to occasional disturbances. So the consistency, how it will come? How the consistency will come in terms of productivity? So can you give an example? I'm not understanding this concept. Yes, of course, we are going to explain the example in this particular area in detail. If you're talking about the consistency uh, in the microbe, yeah, in each and every year, the same amount of date productivity we are observing. Why? Because it is an adaptation. Adaptation, you're seeing in the case of dates, okay, but can you give what type of adaptation exactly? The leaves are having thick cuticles, deposits much more, which makes the date plant to survive more efficiently in a climatic condition. So date plant is having a very good amount of adaptation with thick cuticles in it. So these thick cuticles makes the date plant to survive more efficiently, right? So now, if you're talking about, um, I told about the thick cuticles, right? Thick cuticles is playing a crucial role in reducing the heat exposure to the plant. Thick cuticles is reducing the heat exposure to the plant, right? So now, if you're saying about the next message is this area, uh, David Tiltman, the full name is David Tiltman. Sometimes they will say Tiltman, sometimes they will say David Tiltman. You should take both the scientist uh, information are same. In this particular year-to-year variation, the total biomass. So reveal that plots with more species experienced less year-to-year variation total biomass. Plot with more species experienced less year-to-year variation in total biomass, right? So total biomass. So uh, here, increased diversity also contributes to a higher productivity in this experiment. Although we may not complete comprehend how species richness impact ecosystem well-being, so do know that rich biodiversity is not only a vital for ecosystem health, but also improved for the survival of the human race, right? So I'll give an example for you. Here, higher productivity uh, of the vitamin B12 we are experiencing with a specific type of lactobacillus, with a specific type of lactobacillus, with a specific type of lactobacillus we are experiencing. So again, back I'm repeating, lactobacillus bacteria, which is responsible for making quite a good number of vitamin B12. So this is a very important species which is growing the milk to make the curd. In this curd rich in this bacteria, we can find quite a good amount of vitamin B12, which is very, very important for making the iron absorption to happen in our intestine. So in the intestine, iron absorption is happening much more. In the intestine, iron absorption is happening much more because of the vitamin B12, right? So these all the informations are enough. And now we are coming for the Western Guard is showing the maximum variation than the Eastern Guard that we already narrated for you in many number of time, right? So here, why ecosystem is more beneficial for the human race? For that, we given the example. Lactobacillus makes vitamin B12 in the curd, and this vitamin B12 in the intestine is responsible for iron absorption. So this iron absorption in the intestine is very, very important for the human being to make the hemoglobin, which is symbolized with Hb. For that to happen, we need quite a good amount of vitamin B12, which is made by Lactobacillus lacti in the milk while making the curd. This is a message we need to understand under the example category of this particular concept, where I bracketed with bracketed. I think so you understood this message. Now we are entering into the next important concept, the importance of the species diversity in ecosystem. There are no direct answers to each question. Stanford ecologist Paul Ehrlich, the Stanford means the Stanford University. So, okay, Stanford ecologist means we need to understand the concerned scientist who belongs to Stanford University. He brought a beautiful hypothesis, which is nothing but a river poppet hypothesis. See, I'll give an example for you. In an aeroplane, if one passenger seat is missing, the plane will go without any issues. Of course, there is no issue at all. If one wheel is missing, if one wing is missing the aeroplane, we'll all die, right? In the aeroplane, again back, the fan which is rotating below the wing, if it is missing, we'll all die. So what is the purpose of explaining this message when you are discussing ecosystem? When we are removing any one species in ecosystem, okay, there is the less impact value. There is the less impact value. Some are having the maximum impact value. So some is having the less impact, some is having the maximum impact. For example, if I'm removing the certain species like the grasses, yeah, the goat can manage with the herb and shrub. Whereas if I'm removing the water medium, the goat can't sustain. The goat can't sustain. So we need to understand basically some species is having the least value, some species is having the maximum value. Okay, again back I'm repeating, some species is having maximum value, some species is having less value, like this we already told for you, right? So some species is having maximum value, some species are having minimum value in terms of survival, in terms of the ecosystem um, value, right? For example, I'm a species, I'm a minimum value. That means I am not good in making the species which is having the good value. Uh, the species which is having good value, the species which is having maximum value. Okay, I just only told you, if you are removing the frog from the Western Ghats, there will be a huge distraction in the biodiversity of various species, right? Because frog is a meal for the snake. Frog is a meal for not only for the snake, even for other other carnivorous animals like avians. So frog will be taken by the carnivore. Frog will be taken by the snakes. Certain species arrive minimum value. Okay, for example, if you're talking about the small insects are disappearing. In the case of grasses, there are many insects are there. For example, let us consider the beetle fly is disappearing um, in the particular geographical area. It won't cause a drastic biodiversity destruction. So this is the way you need to remember in our mind in different level. So all these informations are correlated. The aeroplane is having missing a wheel or missing wing. There will be a drastic disturbances. There will be drastic disturbances, right? There is a drastic disturbances, right? If the wheel is missing, if the fan is missing, if the wing is missing, there is a drastic disturbances. If the passenger seat is missing, not a problem. The aeroplane will reach properly the destination. So there is no issue at all. So this concept, we are correlating the ecosystem concept. Certain species are having maximum value, certain species are having the least value, right? This is categorized under reward puppet hypothesis, right? What consequences this biodiversity loss is going to create? The carbon footprint can't be reduced to the massive level. We will have lung suffocation. We will have the difficulty in breathing. We will have difficulty in survival. So why? Because carbon footprints are maximum. So carbon footprints are maximum in the case of the world. If the algae population is reduced, and this, our survival will become a question mark. Our survival will become a question mark, right? So now we are entering into the next major concept in the case of biodiversity uh, is this biodiversity is very, very important for the plant and animal to survive in different geographical area. In plant and animal to survive in different geographical area, right? So we already conveyed this message for you. Why the biodiversity loss we are experiencing? Because of the man-made pollution. Okay, man-made pollution, right? Because of that, we are explaining certain few important points. The Mauritius is a dodo bird. It is no more now. The cougar of Africa, thylacine of Australia, steeler cow of Russia is not uh, there in the world because the species vanished because of the population of the human as well as the pollution made by the human population. Okay, drastically reduce this bird survival. Okay, so this is a very good example of the biodiversity loss. Like this, we told to you. The reason behind that is, okay, the oxygen quality should be very good. If the industries are much more to increase the revenue of the country, what will happen is, if the industries are much more to reduce the oxygen content of the atmosphere, then what will happen is many avians will come down in its population, right? So many human beings die because of the lungs cancer. Many human beings are having lung suffocation problem. Many avians are having respiratory problem because of the major industrial pollution. So this is a very good example for the biodiversity loss. And now I'm entering into the records. Amphibians appears more vulnerable to the extinction because um, more vulnerable to the extinction. Why? Why? Because the amphibians are cold-blooded animal, and second thing, cold-blooded animal means it can't changes its temperature to the atmosphere temperature. So that is the reason why not only amphibians and even the worms of various quality and quantity of various geographical area like frog, it can't sustain in the different geographical area. Now, we are entering into the next major concept is 12% of the avian species, 23% of the mammal species and 31% of the gymnosperms faces the great potential extinction. Why? Because of the population, as well as human pollution. So the reason behind that is that I already told you, industrial pollution, one I narrated. In addition to this, we are not having a proper control over algal bloom. This algal bloom is creating a great problem um, in terms of the oxygen content of the water. Okay, the oxygen content of the water is drastically reduced because of the algal bloom. As a result, many algae is dying. Like this, we are seeing. And the second thing is the other species which depends upon the oxygen is also getting uh, reduced in terms of population size because of the less oxygen concentration. Less oxygen concentration of the species um, is because of the less oxygen content of the water. Because the growing algae, which dominates the water medium more faster. Very good example is nostoc, which created a lot of issues to the aquatic species, right? This is the way we are remembering the concept in our mind. So any one of you are having any doubt, please let me know. Now we are coming for loss of biodiversity. The species extinctions are estimated to be 100 to 1,000 times faster than in the pre-human times with human activity being here, being the primary driver, right? So uh, we already told the species extinctions are much more faster because of the population size and pollution volume. In addition to this, what are the other criteria which is bringing the biodiversity destruction? So the loss of biodiversity is bringing the less plant productivity. So why there is a less plant productivity? Why? Because the reason is the pollution. The reason is pollution. So the pollution made, again back I'm repeating, the pollution is bringing down the population size uh, of your plant species. As a result, what is exactly happening? The carbon footprint is not reduced. Then we can bring the other messages. Um, the loss of biodiversity is not making the dependent species. For example, I am a grasshopper, I require a specific type of grass. Without that grass, I can't sustain. Like this, the African grasshopper is saying, okay, what I can do. So we given the China grass, we given the India grass in Nepal. But what happened is this grasshopper not sustained very nicely because of the which particular um inefficiency, the grass utilizing inefficiency. Grass utilizing inefficiency. So I'm a grasshopper of the China variety. I can't take African grass. I can't take Indian grass. I can't take the America grass. So I require only this specific grass. So I can't sustain like this. Some grasshoppers of China, when you are growing in Nepal, it is dying, right? So this is a classic example for the species loss. Now we are going to the next important concept is uh, right. In the ecosystem, many varieties of species origination and loss we understood, the habitat loss and fragmentation. You can see this picture here. Here, 14% of the Earth land surface. Uh, Here, the 14 percentage, okay, of the Earth land surface now occupies only 6%. Why? Because the land is occupied by the water medium much more, right? The Amazon rainforest, called the lungs of the planet, is rapidly diminishing due to deforestation of agriculture and cattle ranching. Because of the agriculture purpose, we are destroying the forest and we are utilizing that particular land for agriculture, but ultimately we are reducing the plant population of the specific forest, and then the carbon footprints we can't reduce it, right? So, and also whenever you are destroying the forest for the agricultural purpose, what happens is the specific species or the specific geographical area is are not living very nicely, are not living very nicely, are not living nicely, right? So specific species of a specific geographical area are not living nicely. So that is a message we need to understand. So any one of you are having doubt in this place, please let me know. Now we are entering into over exploitation. Humans have always relied on nature for sustenance and shelter. Excessive exploitation of nature resource can drive the species to extinction. Still a cow and passenger pigeons went extinct in the last 500 years due to overexploitation. Okay, because of the industrial pollution and the municipal pollution, in the sense not only the house pollution. For example, we are using plenty of chemicals for washing, not only the utensils, not only for the cloth, for the entire floor cleaning, we are using different type of acids. Of course, it spoils the soil microbe diversity by killing many microbe when we are discarding the industrial and house effluent without any pre-treatment, right? So now, if you're entering into the fish population, um, we are seeing this message in the time. The fish population are reducing. Why? Because of the oil spill leakage from the various oil tank and oil wells in the seashore area of the Gulf countries. Because of this reason, many fish variation and population we are not observing in a good number. Okay, and now alien species invasion. The very good example of the alien species invasion, Nile perch introduction into the Lake Victoria of the East Africa is not allowing the native species, okay, child species is not sustaining properly. Why? Because of the introduction of the Nile perch. So Nile perch is creating the issue. Nile perch is creating the issue, right? So it is not allowing the native species to sustain and thrive, right? So why? Because it is more competent in replacing the food resource. Nile perch is more competent in replacing the food resource. Again, back I'm repeating, Nile perch is a quite amazing competitor. It won't allow the native species to survive, right? That we already told for you. And now we are entering in we are discussing about co-extinction. So I'm a species, I depend upon the other species. If that species is dying, I'll also die. For example, I'm a plant pollinator. So if the plant is dying, okay, then being a pollinator, I'm doing the pollination, but at the same time, I'm getting the nectar. Okay, nectar is not available for me, so I can't sustain, I can't thrive, I can't live. But because the plant vanished because of the drastic pollution, there is a reason why being a plant, I'm dying because of the great food, because of great carbon footprints, right? Um, that is what the World Health Organization always emphasize us to reduce the carbon footprints by not allowing the biofuel, like this I'm not saying, by not allowing the fossil fuel usage should be reduced, okay, whereas the biofuel usage should be taken to the maximum level. For example, what do you mean about biofuel? Okay, castor bean oil is used as a biofuel to run the mission, to run the industry, right? So these are the quite good example for the co-extinction, right?